Hey guys, this is me Hack, and in this video we would go and do a very interesting lab from Pwnedlabs, and this one is based on like Azure. So let's get started, right? Um, this is the name of the lab, like Blob container, Azure Blob container to initial access. So let me give a quick summary of it, right? So in Azure, like Blob container is something similar to S3 bucket on AWS and cloud storage bucket on GCP. And even like if you know like little bit about cloud security, whenever it comes to like storage container or like something like S3 bucket or storage container, like there's a high chance of a misconfiguration, right? And a lot of times like those bucket would actually get exposed, and it might be like publicly available to everyone, like world readable or like world accessible, right? So something similar happened in this case. So let me go back to my terminal now. So this is the lab, like Azure Blob container to initial access, and this is our starting point. So we can copy the URL. We can copy the URL. We can visit this real quick. So this is like starting point. Let me go ahead and see if you're able to see my screen. Cool. So this is our starting point, and kind of like a typical CTF. Up here, like whenever we up here we go and do like view base source, right? We would see the URL for the blob storage, right? So let me open this up real quick. So this is what like URL for blob storage actually looks like. Let me make that little bit better. So up here, like in blob storage, Azure has like multiple classifications, but for now understand this as like service account name, I believe, could be wrong. And this is like container name, right? Web is our like container name, and we can actually list it, right? Or we can actually try to access it. In our case, we get like blob not found, which is completely fine. My next step was like maybe we can actually do some kind of fuzzing, but for fuzzing we can also try something like this. So there's a way we can list everything inside this like container or like storage bucket. Let me open another tab, something like this, right? This is again like subs account name, container name, and this is our query, right? Erase type container comp list, right? So we can go back to our terminal. Let me zoom in. Curl this, okay, curl the, and I probably need to fix one more thing. Should be like single quote, because the dollar sign might get treated as some kind of variable, and we see a lot of information up here. So we can simply copy everything, open up cyber shift. And by the way, like if you don't know about like cyber shift, I would, it means you guys probably don't play CTFs, right? So maybe it could be a good time to actually go ahead and start playing CTF. But up here we have like XML. We can look out for XML beautify. So this would make it like easily like readable for us, and we can actually see all the files like stored in this like specific container, right? And right now it's not really that useful for us, right? This is not really that useful, but in Azure, like every cloud, right, but it be like GCP or like AWS, most of like storage container or like bucket has something called versioning enabled, right? And something similar, uh, there's something similar case with this too, right? And the way to like list um versions is like little bit different in Azure. Let me see if I can show you guys. um yeah, let's see. Let me scroll up, scroll up. Okay, I think, yeah, so this is how we are supposed to list like different versions in like Azure. So up here this is um, some kind of a header, and it's necessary to be specified in Azure to be able to list like different versions. And whenever like you would go deeper into Azure security, like just like GCP or like AWS, like whenever you get your initial foothold on a EC2 instance or a compute instance, the very next step a lot of people go for is to like try to access metadata server and try to print out the token, right? I'm pretty sure like in Azure, like you also need to specify this specific header, and you have to do something similar in GCP, but that has a different header, and it's called like metadata flavor Google. But coming back to our topic now, so this is this is how we are supposed to list versions on Azure, right? And it would get an output something like this. Kind of looks ugly, right? So we would go back to, again, like we would go back to cybershift, and this is our output, right? So cybershift, and up here we see a very interesting or a new file called script transfer.zip, and we can also see the version ID. Again, we can't simply just copy this and go back to like up here and enter like script whatever the zip file name is, right? That won't actually work. And there's a different way to actually download that specific version of zip file in Azure, and it's something like this. Again, we have to specify a custom header, and we also need to specify the version ID in this format, right? And we can download like script transfer.zip file, and we can unzip it. After unzipping it, we can see there's like multiple PowerShell script, and in those script we found like bunch of credentials, or not bunch of credentials, we found like few credentials in it. And this is our first credential, and it would actually like get us access to like Azure, right? As you can see, marcus@megabigtech.com, e the eagle 1234 blah blah blah. And if we read the script like more carefully, like it's so it would take the credential of Marcus, log it into Azure, and then it would make the request to like a Graph API. After making the request like Graph API, like it will try to get the access token from it, and then it would actually try to list users and last sign in information, right? Since I'm on Kali machine, I can't really run this script, right? Again, now coming back to another PowerShell script, which is called stable computer accounts with PS1. This one seems like it's part of some kind of active directory, right? Could be our next step, but I don't know, man. Now coming back to Azure now, so this is how like you are supposed to like log in into Azure on, at least on a Linux machine, right? So let me go back. It's like AZ login. Let me scroll down. So yeah, like on Kali, like you can install the Azure package using pip install Azure CLI, something like that. Then you can log in using the command AZ login, right? Let me zoom in. Can I zoom in? Yeah, I could. So you have to like log in into AZ CLI using AZ login, and then you will be redirected to a browser, right? And over there, like you have to enter the credentials which were found in like a PowerShell script for, right? So go ahead and enter the credential for the user Marcus, right? where is the credential, man? So go ahead and enter the credential whenever you would run AZ login, right? After that, we can try to get access token for Graph API, something like this, right? Now up here, what I did was like I tried to replicate a version of like enter.ps1, but only for Linux, right? So this is the content of this like custom PowerShell script which I have created. So like it would actually take access token like you can read the comment, right? To get the Azure access token using Azure CLI. Step 2, like define the Graph API URL for retrieving user information and sign in details. Step 3, create the header hash table with bearer token. Then it will make a REST API call to Microsoft Graph API, and we would get a REST output, right? So let me try running this again. Well, looks like I don't have permission. Let's see. Let me scroll down. So yeah, like I would actually run like a.ps1 file, something like this, right? And we would get the information, right? And up here we also see job title and we have our flag. This is it. This was kind of like a introductory lab for Azure, right? And in this lab we actually learned about how we can find or figure out misconfigured storage bucket or like storage blob in Azure. Then the next thing which we learned was like okay, so after identifying the misconfigured part, like can I download sensitive files? Yeah, we can actually download it. Then after that we also learned how we can use Azure CLI to sign in into Microsoft cloud, right, or Azure. And after that we also learned how we can get the Graph API token and can list like user details, right, and sign in information. Now coming and by the way, like one great thing about Pwnedlabs is that we have like a defense section up here, something like this, and we can actually read it, right? It's like awesome, to be honest. So up here, like first of all, like one major fault for Megapictic was that these guys had their storage blob exposed, that to like publicly, and that was world readable, right? After that, another thing, like you should never store your credentials like in an unencrypted form, right? And that too, like you should never like store a PowerShell script like this, you know. Then up here, like we can also see like if using Azure CLI, the following command could be used after setting the storage account context with like AZ current storage account remove. And I think like this is the correct way to actually remove a storage blob. Finally, it's never recommended to hardcode credentials in a script. Exactly what I told. Credentials should be stored in PAM, privileged access management system, password manager, or using a service such as Azure Key Vault. Key Vault allows you to securely like store password and access key. And we also have like further reading up here. And maybe like I would say like this is it for like today's video. Thanks for tuning in, and